When I finally sailed the Wye Invader, the name I'd given her, into Hereford on the 12th of November 1989, plan was to breathe new life into her as a floating restaurant and tourist attraction, sited on the River Wye near the city centre. Planning permission was given on the 9th of May 1992 by the former Hereford City Council, but what was about to unfold in this rural county was a coming together of local anglers and various fishing bodies along with the new Herefordshire Council. This transpired into a 20-year legal battle, the outcome of which was that the mooring of a large vessel as a restaurant was an abuse of the right to moor for more than a reasonable period of time. The film you're about to see is unique. It covers our voyage from Penzance in Cornwall. We set sail at 0800 hours, 2 hours before high water, on Easter Sunday, the 23rd of March 1989. Then continuing our journey round Hartland Point into the River Severn, up the estuary to Avonmouth, left into the River Wye, through Chepstow, to Tintern, and the 65-mile passage to the ancient port of Hereford. The last commercial vessel left Hereford downriver for Chepstow in about 1855. Many experts said it was not possible to navigate such a large vessel 38 metres long, with a 5-metre beam and a displacement of about 250 tonnes up to Hereford. If you look over to the right, just coming into view, out of the starboard cabin door, you can see the village of Mousel. Land's End Radio has just given the local weather forecast for today. The wind is locally 5 to 7 from the southwest. Land's End comes into view in the far distance. This should be interesting and a little rough. These barges have flat bottoms. They were not designed for work at sea, and it's much harder for barges to make headway through the peaks and troughs of waves. The Longship's lighthouse is just off to starboard, about a mile off Land's End. This is about as far west as you can go in Cornwall. It's now 14:30 hours and we're surfing up the coast about 5 miles south of Padstow Harbour, where we are making a stopover for the night. It's now the next day and we're leaving Padstow Harbour. It's Bank Holiday Monday the 24th of March. The road support crew, Madeline, Sandra, Harry and their son Richard, are waving as we go astern to continue out into the estuary north towards the next stop, Hilfcombe. Pat, my then business partner in this venture, putting his many years' experience as a mechanic in the forces into practice. Note the hammer.
How much tape have you took?
I don't know, look.
An hour?
No, I wouldn't think so.
When the barge left Rotterdam, just over 90 tons of sand was put into the hold as ballast. When we arrived in the river at Tintern, the ballast had to be removed to lighten the barge and reduce the draft by about 1 foot. We did this to help when the river has less water in the summer. After some thought, problem solved. Call in friends and family. It was a case of bring your own shovel, I'll provide the beer. A long 6 hours later the sand was removed. The bed of the river was a little softer. When we came up the river at 22:30 hours on the 25th of March, it was dark. All we had to help us was a spot lamp, and as a consequence, unfortunately, as we came under the rail bridge just downstream of Tinton, we hit a large rock. The impact fractured one of the blades of the propeller. We were told when we purchased the barge the propeller was made from bronze. However, as we found out, it was actually made from cast iron. We just needed to find the missing part and get it repaired. The following day, we're on our way to Monmouth. The tide is in as we approach Brockweir Bridge, about 13 miles from Monmouth. We've reached Redbrook. The river is in flood, and we've moored up for the night just below the boat inn and the disused rail bridge.
See you later.
Reporters from BBC Wales Cardiff have been on board for about an hour, interviewing me for a news item.
Adam? Yeah, Adam. Brian.
We're now just below Monmouth. The rail viaduct is just ahead. Monmouth Road Bridge. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, and having so many onlookers didn't help. The first half dozen attempts to go through the bridge were unsuccessful because we had a propeller that had too fine a pitch, which meant we did not have sufficient power to push us through the various arches. We gave up on the Saturday and tried again on Sunday.
She's dragging you. Well, the simple answer is, John, that the water's got to go down and this cab's got to come off. Yeah. But there's no other way you'll do it.
I called in a favour, and Sunday evening we had the use of a recovery truck with a strong winch. With the help of the winch on the truck, we solved the problem. I had to make sure no damage was done to the bridge. There were enough people waiting for me to mess up. Without adding fuel to the fire, we were pulled gently through the second arch from the town side. The following weekend, after struggling to get through Monmouth Bridge, we were offered a 40-inch propeller on loan. What you are seeing is the propeller in very cold water in early April 1989 being changed.
No.
Start that little donkey engine up, like used as a bloody hairdryer. Right.
Starboard's left, port's right. What cannon? Morning. Fresh.
The propeller changed. Time to dry out and get warm.
I've been waiting 3 weeks for this.
It's Sunday the 24th of April, 11 a.m. We're moving on to the old wharf just below the rowing club in Monmouth, ready to move off to Symonds Yat later in the day. It's about 1500 hours. Everyone's on board, ready for the next leg of the journey, heading for Symonds Yat. I hoped we would make it in about an hour. The river was too shallow for us to continue. We were stuck for want of water for the next 6 months. This was the start of a very long, dry, hot summer, but a beautiful part of the countryside to be stuck in. A great weekend retreat, as it turned out. Every weekend the crew and friends spent Friday night, Saturday night and Sunday on the barge. Saturday evenings were barbecue nights, or it was a walk 2 miles down the river to Monmouth, or 3 miles up the river to Symonds Yat for a few drinks. We had a wonderful summer, really good memories. I purchased a 2-cylinder Petter winch, which I thought would assist us going up the rapids at Symonds Yat. This was, of course, when we had rain again and enough water in the river to float. The winch weighed about 1 ton, and of course we chose the hottest weekend of the summer to get it on board. Big mistake, but it had to be done. After waiting 6 months for rain and the river levels to rise sufficiently for us to continue our journey, on Sunday afternoon, the 23rd of October 1989, the Wye Invader became the first commercial vessel in over 140 years to ascend the rapids at Symonds Yat. We had made it over the most difficult part of the Wye. There was no stopping us now. We moored adjacent to the Saracen's Head public house, on the old wharf, just downstream of the ferry. If you look to the stern of the boat downstream, you can just about see the top of the rapids in the distance. After successfully navigating the rapids, the crew and helpers had a few drinks to celebrate.
Symonds Yat.
Symonds Yat. Symonds Yat.
Hang on, wait.
All right. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Symonds Yat.
I was so glad to have proved the sceptics wrong. I knew I could do it. I had spent a long time researching and getting to know the river.
No, Symonds Yat.
What's his name?
General Sir.
This was the first attempt to leave for Ross and Wye. The ferry wire was in our way. We'd thought we could lift it, but the wire was very heavy, and of course went all the way across the river. Back to the drawing board, it would have to be dropped into the river so we could pass over it. 15:30 hours. We're leaving Symonds Yat, heading for Ross and Wye, 16 miles upriver. There had been rain up country and the river has a fresh flood on, so it's about 2 metres above normal. Just what we wanted. We're now on the half a mile straight below Symonds Bridge, moving from side to side between the fishing obstructions below the waterline.
They get ready to round him up, Paul, haven't we?
We're just going up and over Lower Lidbrook Weir. The weir is about 2 metres high. There is an island mid-channel, but it's covered by flood water. We should miss it comfortably. It's about last light. We're just approaching Kerne Bridge. For the last half mile or so, we've been climbing up and over a series of rapids. We must have gone up at least 2 metres. The next 4 miles are travelled in the dark. Friday the 10th of November. In the Welsh mountains it's been raining hard for the last few days. The river level is getting higher. Because of the continued rain, there is a flood heading our way down the Wye. We now have enough depth of water for the barge to float. We must go through Wilton Bridge in the next few hours to enable us to be in a position to navigate to Hereford by Sunday midday, before the water levels start to fall back as the flood waters recede. Wilton Bridge was always going to be a problem, because the two arches near to the Wilton side were blocked by trees and stone fishing obstructions. What further complicates the situation is the bridge is on a bend and the centre arch is not very wide or high.
No comment. Sailing, isn't it? What's up?
Move out. You're just squashing my trees. Slip her down the river to where I said.
Your trees?
Yeah.
Come on, Frank.
Okay, no problem. Where are we going to put it then?
Let her go back. Let her go back down the river to where I said.
Well, stick it up there, John. Do you own that piece of ground up there?
Where?
There.
No, mine finishes at the end of the car park.
So do you own the open anchor?
Yeah.
Well, I spoke to you and you said that you wanted this sort of thing done, and you...
Sorry?
Don't you remember speaking to me earlier on in the year?
Yeah, I do. I don't want you in crushing the trees.
Well, I'm sorry.
But you're ripping the trees out of my land.
Right.
I told you they weren't friendly, didn't I?
Have a nice day.
I'm having a discussion with the landlord of the open anchor at Ross and Wye. Apparently he had an issue with where we were about to moor the barge. I had met with him on 2 previous occasions to confirm that he had no objections to the barge being moored against the riverbank adjacent to his pub. He had changed his mind, so this in turn resulted in us mooring further upriver, which was a shame for him and for us.
I mean, there's nothing else coming down, is there?
I wouldn't have thought so.
Railway bridge coming up.
Two arches on the left are blocked. We've no option but to go through the centre. What's interesting about this bridge is that it's disused, it's a former railway bridge, and the permanent way has been removed off the top.
Hold on, Fiona.
Hold on, lads. I've got the bridges up. Get out of the way, get out. We're going to be secure across the bridge. Stand by. Just going to the back.
Hold tight.
About half a mile in front, you can see the suspension bridge.
Madeline?
As we get closer, you begin to realise that it's going to be quite tight. We pass under the bridge with about a foot to spare.
I know I can't do it, the current's taking us. Where's the torch?
Keep the workers.
I don't know.
You left it in the car, didn't you?
No, in the engine room
You
door.
did yesterday. You heard about it. Well, so you can see it, you know.
You're right, man.
Was that boat still there?
Oh yeah, it's stuck in the trees there.
Sledge line.
put it in there on these trees coming up now. Where's Paul? We can put him in on just where these trees are. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very shallow here, my friend.
Well, I mean, we've got no choice, have we?
No, you can't. You'll have to go up.
Yeah, just there on those trees.
No, up above there. No, we're not big trees there.
Anyway, you can bring it up on the end, can you?
Yeah.
Sellack Bridge is a suspension bridge. We have very little air draft. The flood that's coming down the river has now got as far as here, and we only just squeeze through with 2 or 3 inches to spare. We're just passing the Hoarwithy Road Bridge, 10 miles upstream of Ross and Wye. There are only 15 miles to Hereford, all being well. Just ahead are the tree-covered islands at Ballast. Under the trees are what is left of the old mill and weir. The mill and weir fell into disrepair, and the remains were never cleared from the riverbed. The only way past this obstruction is a narrow channel to the left. This channel is very much restricted by trees.
Because we're in the building then, the only thing that can happen is there's like a cabin on the side. Watch your faces. All right, Joe.
Brilliant.
Hey?
I said brilliant.
All down to the choice of crew and supporters.
Oh, I'm so proud. Glad to hear it.
We got 20 foot of water under us here.
Yeah, that's great. Well done, man.
If you look just off to the starboard side of the barge, you can see some of the fishing aids, which are really obstructions, lines of rocks, which are just under the surface. These can cause serious problems, and most are unmarked, often going halfway across the river. At this point, I will explain that the anglers place these obstructions in the river to allow fish somewhere to lie out of the current. These can cause a serious problem, and most are unmarked, often going halfway across the river. You can probably tell from my comments that I had no time for such masses of concrete obstructing and spoiling the beauty of the River Wye. At low water, they are a complete eyesore, and in my opinion, should not be permitted. For the next 3 to 4 miles, we have to navigate through a series of bends in the river, most of which double back on themselves. These bends, coupled with the overhanging trees, are making navigation difficult. At last, Holme Lacy Bridge is just ahead of us, and it's going to be a squeeze to get the barge under. The river is now 3 metres above normal. Tony is stood on the bow of the barge, and I'm using him as my guide, because if he clears the bridge, then the barge will too.
See you all lower down.
Yeah. Hello, Jamie.
Hi. Hello.
Yeah.
We are on the Bunch of Carrots corner, about 4 miles from our destination, with the light fading fast. This is the last really tight corner before Hereford. This is as far as we're going tonight, so we'll moor up and head for the pub.
You think you never see them on this, do you?
Nah.
Some sort of God.
The river's floodwater was going down quickly, so we had to use the winch and the engine to slowly free the barge from the riverbed. Consequently, we are facing quite a difficult challenge to be sure we had enough air draft to get through the rail bridge safely.
Stand by!
Just tell me where.
Sigh of relief all round as we come through the rail bridge and sail on up the river. We are near the end of the journey. You can see Hereford's famous cathedral to the right, so it's not far to our mooring.
Go on, give it some horn. Give it some horn.
This is where we stopped, just short of Hereford city border. It was Remembrance Sunday, 12th of November 1989, and we stayed moored until Boxing Day.
Up the back, you spilt me beer.
Where have you come from today?
Darren.
Have
Remy, yes, Remy. If you won't cross off.
We're passing the King George V playing fields and approaching the Victoria Footbridge. Only a few hundred yards to go. This is the first commercial barge to make the port of Hereford in over 150 years. What an amazing achievement. On the right bank, boats as large as the Wye Invader were built up until 1857.
Everything up there is too shallow.
They're going to moor by the Saracen's Head. You won't miss that if you hurry.
Ah. No, I've seen from here.
This is the final leg of the journey. We're just coming up to the old Wye Bridge, with 300 metres to go until we moor outside Hereford Rowing Club. It took us 20 hours to do the 75 miles from Chepstow to Hereford.